In Abuja, Nigeria's Interior Minister Rauf Aregbesola and the Comptroller General, Nigerian Correctional Service, Haliru Nababa, have a date with the House of Representatives over the recent jailbreak in Kuje, Abuja. Also summoned is the commander of the Army Platoon on duty on the night of the attack. The House Committee on Interior issued the summons during a visit to Kuje Correctional Center days after a deadly attack by suspected terrorists. We have details in this report.
Like a bolt out of the blue, about 300 armed men invaded Kuje, a suburb of the nation's capital. They pumped rocket-propelled grenades and improvised explosive devices into the custodial center, housing over 900 inmates. At the end of the over 2-hour ordeal, more than 800 inmates, including 64 Boko Haram commanders, were freed and 5 persons confirmed dead. This visit by the House Committee on Interior is to have an on-the-spot assessment of the correctional center after the sad incident with a view to preventing a recurrence.
We are going to summon the CBI team and if possible the minister to come and explain more in a private distance so that the Nigerians will know what is happening.
Indeed, the attacks on custodial centers have become one too many. Apart from becoming a source of embarrassment to the nation's security architecture, it poses a grave danger to the citizens. Records show that the Buhari administration has recorded no less than 15 successful jailbreaks. Now, these legislators say incidents such as these can no longer be condoned. They say many questions beg for answers.
From the rules of security services, they're supposed to post one armed man from one security agent to a place.
Their operation shows that, yes, they are very conversant with this place. They are aware of all the network here.
The committee would like to know how many inmates that we are in the correctional facility and how many escaped.
We have 994 inmates as at the night that they attacked.
994?
Yes. So after the attack, when we came in, we had 115.
Wow.
So if you struck, it will give you about 879 that escaped that day.
Before now, the Interior Ministry admitted that about 3,906 inmates were on the run. With the latest incident, the authorities are on the trail of additional 454 inmates from the Kuje Correctional Facility, and many citizens are upbeat about the threat posed by the escapees to the society.
To walk us through on how Nigeria's correctional centers can be more effective and rehabilitated is the Executive Director of Prison Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, Uju Agomo, who joins us live from our Abuja studio. Dr. Agomo, the Kuje Correctional Center, we're told, according to a prison source, is built to hold some 550 inmates. You heard the official in that report saying there were 994 on the night of the attack. We also know that about 7 out of 10 inmates are awaiting trial. Just how alarming is the issue of overcrowding, and what impact do you see it have on actual prison rehabilitation?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is indeed a very huge problem, a very huge problem. In the country, generally, you have over 70% of those who are in custodial facilities that have not yet become convicted. And there are about 30 facilities, 30 custodial centers that are mainly located in cosmopolitan regions or states and cities that tend to contribute to that population. So when I say 70%, that's looking at the global picture for the whole country. However, there are facilities that more than 90% are not yet convicted. So that brings a lot of pressure on the correctional officers. That also makes it very difficult to plan a proper program for rehabilitation and reintegration, especially because you don't know when that particular inmate that you are trying to work with is going to leave. So because if you have a definite time frame, it will enable you to now say, okay, this is what I'm going to do between this period and this period, given the risk and the needs of that particular inmate. The second point connected to this factor is the fact that once you have inmates that have not yet been convicted, it makes it difficult to move inmates from facilities that are overcrowded to facilities that are under locking. Now, the Comptroller General of Corrections can move inmates from any facility in the country to another. But if the persons are still going to court, it makes that difficult. The Assistant Comptroller of General of Corrections in terms of the zone can do the same within the facilities that are within the zone. And then, of course, the State Comptroller can do that for the facilities that are within the states. But the issue of not having people who have been convicted is a big problem. And that's a very huge problem for us as a country.
Absolutely, it is. And it's also a problem that goes even beyond the correctional center itself. We'll begin to look at the justice regime and how speedy justice is served at our courts. But what do you make of a situation where an inmate returns to a society even as a harder criminal after serving time? Does it in any way picture to us or tells us the quality of correction that is taking place within those walls?
No, certainly that is a very wrong thing to have. We have over 60% what is called recidivism rate. Recidivism rate is the technical word for reoffending rate. The reason is that everyone who gets into custody, everyone who is detained, there are reasons. So you look at the risk factors and the needs factors. And let me just say this. I always want to remind us the fact that there are three categories of persons that you find in custody. There are those who are innocent, there are those who are minor offenders or petty offenders, but there are also those who are hardened offenders. Now, when you cluster everybody together, when you discriminately arrest people, when you have people who you should have diverted to non-custodial sanctions, you are not doing that. What you then do is that even the innocent, you are exposing them to criminal culture because they will begin to have contact with those persons who are, serious offenders. Even the minor offenders, you are exposing them to criminal contact. So again, this is why within the whole justice system, we need to make sure that all through the chain, it's a system. So from the point of arrest, that we do not arbitrarily arrest people. So all the arresting agencies must ensure that that is the case, the police and other policing agencies, and also ensure that once you have arrested this person, you have enough information to begin to want to prosecute, okay? You do the due diligence, the whole notion of investigating policing, all through the process of ensuring diligent prosecution to the timing of the trial, and then, of course, when the sentence is given, to ensure that the sentence fits the context of the offender and the crime. So those who need to be serving their sentences in the community should do that by virtue of Part 2 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019. So again, I believe that part of our challenge is that as a nation, we have to see this as a critical problem. And if it is, I do not see why we should not declare a state of emergency in terms of our justice system and our security system. And there are already legal framework that will enable us drive the reforms. And that's the challenge. We need to have the political will to drive this reform. And that needs to happen from now.
Indeed. Very quickly, let's talk about the actual state of welfare within the correctional centers. You recall that some years ago, there was this huge buzz about how much federal government was paying for each inmate in the area of feeding, which was reportedly higher than how much has been spent on corps members. What's your assessment of the actual state of welfare, particularly the feeding and medical care of Nigerian inmates?
Okay, I think the best way to look at this is this. And first, I must say that when you look at what needs to happen within a particular correctional facility to ensure that food eaten, because remember, once you have detained somebody or somebody you have kept in custodial facility, it is your duty to take care of that person. Or if not, you should let the person be in the community, either on bail or serving community service or sentences. That's the case where. So once the person is in custody, it is therefore your responsibility as a nation to be able to take care of them, okay? Now, the food, the money, as you know, is not adequate. But when you talk about that not being adequate, you are talking about the fact that you have people who the foods are contracted. So the persons who are the contractors will also make their profit, yeah? So you need to talk about the quality and the quantity of feeding. And let me just mention this a little bit, because if we do the needful, you would understand that part of the programming and support for the correctional service will be to support the mechanism of ensuring that farm centers, because they have a program for that. There are some farm centers across the country. So we must ensure that those farm centers are adequately funded. We must ensure that the machineries are adequately given. So part of the challenge is that you find out the locations of the farm centers. You also ask yourself, how are the products being gotten from these farm centers? How are they being processed and utilized? I give you an example. In Zambia, for example, Zambia Correctional Service is at the moment 100% subsistence in terms of their vegetables. All the vegetables that the inmates are eating in Zambia are produced now by the inmates, okay? The same thing with maize meal. The maize meal is, at least at the last count I checked, it was close to about 85% that they are doing. So we can also pragmatically see how we are going to deal with this. Within the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019, it has been clear that the proceeds from either agricultural centers or from vocational workshops can be divided into three. So, but once you put that, what is that thing that we are going to do to ensure that the facility is able to generate enough revenue through that? So if you take vocational center, which is also the same thing doing in terms of agriculture, you ask yourself, how, and I give an example, how come that in this country you cannot see, for example, maybe the uniforms that security agencies
Dr.
are wearing,
but there's a lot to say
produce
in such a short time. So I'm sure we'll return to you for more beautiful ideas on how to get our correctional centers working at optimum level. Dr. Haliru Nababa is the Executive Director of Prison Rehabilitation and Welfare Actions. Thank you for talking to us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you.